I'd grown used to my own rhythm, my own space, my own quiet. But my dad had other ideas. So that day my father was in the house. He was talking about bonding, like we hadn't spent the last 10 years clashing over everything. I should have said no when he suggested night fishing. But I didn't. Maybe guilt got the better of me. Or maybe I was just tired of arguing. The house was new, located somewhere deep in the Appalachian foothills, far off any road. We hiked for over 1.5 miles through thick underbrush and uneven ground. My legs stumbled more than I'd like to admit, and every time I tripped on a stump or slipped on wet moss, Dad threw me this look half pity, half contempt. He didn't even have to speak. The judgment was loud enough in his silence. Still, that didn't stop him from grumbling under his breath. The arguing came later, loud, cutting, bitter. It always does with us, me and my tendency to call out everything he pretends not to be. Later, we reached the river. I was shaking not from the cold, but from rage. I'd been living in a warm state for over a year, and this Appalachian chill cut through my hoodie like knives. We sat up in silence. Well, not silence, just a suffocating quiet. I sat down on a thick, fallen tree trunk, glaring at the water. The river moved fast, white-capped and noisy, like it didn't give a damn what we were doing there. Then Dad's light shifted. A beam across the water, and he froze. "What?" I asked, still pissed off, still ready to start swinging verbal punches again. He didn't answer, so I followed his line of sight, and that's when I saw him. A man stood on the opposite bank, not more than 30 feet across, just outside the reach of our lights, but clear enough to see the details that mattered. Bright orange shirt like hunter orange, only filthier, and jeans. He wasn't moving, just staring, dead still. And then I saw the machete. That thing was a weapon. "Pack it up," Dad growled. That was all he said, but his tone snapped something inside me. I grabbed our gear, with fumbling hands, heart thumping against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Meanwhile, Dad took a few steps forward, shining his light full on the man across the river. "Hey!" he barked. "This your land?" The guy just stood there. And then, slowly, he raised a hand and began waving it side to side, real erratic-like. A gesture that meant nothing and everything. Mocking? Warning? But I saw Dad's mouth moving. Saw the man start to respond, arms gesturing wildly now. Whatever was being said, it wasn't good. Then the man stepped into the water. He moved like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. One hand hanging by his side, the other brushing up against the hilt of that machete. Dad snapped, "Let's go." I looked back and saw him take another step, water up to his shins now. Still staring. I ditched the rest of the gear and stuck to Dad. He doesn't run so much as glide, but I wasn't slowing down. I don't know if he followed. We never looked back. My dad moved like a machine. I stumbled behind, nearly crashing into him more than once as he tore through the brush without pause. Eventually, we hit the road, and didn't stop running until reaching the house. My dad didn't say a word for nearly an hour. He just stood at the kitchen window, watching the woods. The next morning, Dad called the sheriff. They weren't surprised. Apparently, there's a guy known to haunt the backwoods, scaring people off his land, or what he thinks is his land. Nobody knows exactly where he lives. Nobody's caught him either. "Just don't go back there," was the gist of it. So what did we do? We went back later, armed this time. Dad's one dusty rifle, and I wasn't thrilled, but I wasn't letting him go alone either. We followed the same path, in daylight. When we reached the river, our gear was still there, mostly. The tackle box was gone. Poles were bent, and the fishing line? Strung up between the trees. This was someone's idea of a joke, or a warning. We didn't say anything for a long while. Then, quietly, Dad muttered, "We shouldn't have come back." That was the first thing close to an apology I'd heard from him in years. We just packed up the rest of what we could and left. And neither of us ever went back to that river. It was the fall of 1992 when I made the mistake of driving alone through the Appalachians with just my dog, Boone, for company. I was 28 and convinced I didn't need anyone. The plan was a solo road trip. I'd never seen that part of the country and thought a few nights of camping would clear my head. I'd gotten a map from a local gas station and picked a place that looked remote enough, some stretch of forest off Route 220, about an hour south of Elkins, West Virginia. Just trees, hills, and silence. The forest was beautiful, but still and too quiet for comfort. Boone started acting strange about 10 miles in. Usually, he loved car rides. But now he had his nose to the window, ears flat, and let out this low, continuous growl. I pulled off on a dirt road that led to what looked like a logging path, abandoned, overgrown, perfect. I parked, got out, and stretched, trying to shake off the chill crawling up my spine. Boone refused to leave the truck. I called him 3 times. He just stared at the woods, whining. That's when I saw the first carcass. It was a deer, half buried under dead leaves, except its body was untouched, unmarked. Like something had eaten only the face. Flies buzzed around it, and the air stank of rot. I grabbed Boone's leash, clipped it to his collar, and yanked him out. He whined, but followed. We set up camp, not far from the truck. I built a small fire and sat down to eat a cold sandwich and try to read. Oh my God, then I heard the voices. Men's voices, maybe 2 or 3 of them deep in the trees. Too far to make out the words, but close enough to know it wasn't just wind. My blood froze. I stood up, heart racing, and strained to listen. Boone was rigid, hackles up, teeth bared. He was staring into the woods like he could see something I couldn't. "Hello?" I called, but nothing. And then again, laughter, quick and sharp. It sounded wrong. Boone barked, lunging toward the tree line. I yanked him back. "I've got a gun," I shouted. Lie. I didn't have a damn thing. Just a flashlight and a kitchen knife. For a long moment, there was nothing. No sound. I packed everything and threw Boone into the truck, jumped in, and peeled out. I didn't stop driving for nearly an hour. I didn't sleep that night. Holed up in some motel, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Boone as he paced the room. He wouldn't settle, wouldn't even eat. That night, I started to think I'd imagined it all. Paranoia. Stress. I tried to write it off, but it never left me. Weeks later, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd heard. That god-awful laugh. It didn't sound human. I went to the library and started reading. Cryptids, folklore, legends. I didn't even know what I was looking for, just something, anything that might explain it. Somewhere I found it. Wendigo. An Algonquian legend, an evil spirit that mimics human voices to lure people into the woods. I couldn't breathe. My hands started shaking as I read story after story, people vanishing from campsites, hikers who turned up weeks later with no memory. Then I found an article from a local paper. Over 100 disappearances in the area since the 70s. They said it was probably the terrain or exposure. But I'd been there. Whatever lived in it. It wasn't meant to be seen. It was late October of 2007. I was 13 that year. Skinny guy, my best friend, Ella. And I had a ritual. We'd meet at 3 p.m. near those old train tracks that cut the forest in half, near Damascus, Virginia. One afternoon, I rode my bike across the tracks, lean, and it started to feel different as soon as I stepped off the rusted ties. I looked around and felt it. that hollow weight of eyes on your back. Chill, even though the sun was still above the treetops. I shook my head, headed to our clearing, an open area where the ground was flat and clear enough to sit and play. Instead of seeing Ella, though, I found her notebook open on a fallen log. Big letters. Hey, I had to go back to the cabin for batteries. Don't move. I'll be back soon. It was Ella's neat handwriting. My breath came shallow. She wasn't gone long, only 20 minutes at most. But it was just me now, in the middle of the old-growth woods. Minutes passed. The wind picked up leaves. I flipped from game to watch, and watch to game, my heart racing, trying not to look around. 30 minutes in, the uneasy feeling had escalated. I popped my head up again and froze just for a second, but that was enough. Between two pale trunks, at the tree line, something moved, human-shaped, tall, covered. There, for maybe a heartbeat, then gone. My stomach dropped, but it was just someone in a hoodie. But the costume didn't matter here. The vibe was wrong. Bad. I dropped my Game Boy and stood. I shouted for Ella, but no answer. Step by step, I backed up. Ella. I screamed it again. Then the figure reappeared, tall, crooked, hooded, half in shadow, half in orange-brown dirt. He stood at one end of the clearing. I dropped the notebook. My legs locked. He cocked his head in return. Then he spoke. Low, gravel, thick. Hey, buddy. We held that standoff. Kid in the open, hooded figure at the treed edge. Hey, buddy. I was just talking to Ella. Oh God, that was enough. I turned. I ran. I swear, I sprinted, barefoot in places, tearing jeans and scraping skin raw. Behind me, the crunch of autumn leaves and sickening snatches of words. Wait, come back, please. I howled in shock and pain, but didn't stop. And then I saw her, Ella, sprinting from across the tracks, her bike abandoned, face white as bone. She grabbed my hand, pulling me up. Come on. Run. We ran. I was bleeding, and the hooded figure's voice behind, stop running. But our feet slamming into dirt by our pounding hearts. And when we got across past where the old signal tower's half-collapsed frame blocked the path, past an old mile marker, we looked back. The woods beyond the clearing were silent. This time, no movement. No figure. I don't remember how we got home. It was twilight when I heard my mom yell my name. I collapsed in her arms, hurt and terrified. My leg bleeding, my lungs burning, knees bruised. Weeks later, the clearing was bulldozed, and years later, I'd hear rumors. Other kids said they saw a skinny figure in the woods. I don't bike those trails. I don't go near train tracks in woods. I'm 34 now. That child's fear lives in me. And I learned something important. The woods don't forget you. It was a crisp morning in early October 2018. My wife, Anna, our 2 kids, Mika and Evan, and I piled into our SUV for a simple family trip, a hike and picnic at a scenic spot off the Appalachian Trail in northern Pennsylvania. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. We were supposed to reconnect with nature. We blew past the official parking lot signs, though. The Appalachian marker on our GPS kept rerouting us. I didn't pay much attention until we turned onto a dirt road, no gravel, just slick clay and fallen leaves sharply branching off the asphalt. The GPS calmly insisted, in 200 feet, turn left. My heart dipped, but I thought, hell, it's scenic. 2 miles later, the road narrowed until branches scraped the SUV's roof. I hit a blind turn and nearly went airborne at a washout. That should have been the red flag. We pulled the car to the side tight mountain edge, drop off on one side, cliff on the other, and I told my family, Hold on. I climbed out and tested the road ahead. It crumbled. No trees or shrubs tied it down. One wrong maneuver, and the car and us would tumble hundreds of feet down a jagged, rocky slope. We reversed back to a wider patch under old pines. The kids were quiet, aware something was wrong. My wife's jaw was clenched. Our plan to hike and laugh and picnic had slipped through our fingers. We sat for a while, engines off, ears straining for anything but the wind. That's when we heard loud snap of twigs, upward crack of branches. Somewhere off the road, near the trees. Anna heard it too. Mika and Evan looked at me in the rearview mirror, wide-eyed. Oh my God, I couldn't shake the chill. We lost service as soon as the dirt road turned steep. I tried again and again. Nothing. So I did what a lot of drivers do, followed the GPS anyway, hoping it would lead us back to safety. It didn't. We climbed too far, wound too deep into hollows. By dusk, the road ended in an abandoned clearing with a single rusted guardrail protecting only itself, no road, no path after it. I shook my head. We need to turn around. Anna guided me as I made a 3-point turn with inches to spare. Even so, the guardrail groaned as I scraped it on the rear bumper. The kids winced. We climbed back into the SUV. I stared at the naked forest outside, leafless spruce and beach shadows swallowing darkness. Just trees. It was nearly 11 p.m. when I finally coaxed the GPS to recalculate. It looked for a route. Found one leading into solid black on the screen. Trust it, Anna said softly. We already made it this far. I shook my head, but I started the engine. I followed the purple line. Darkness pressed against the windows. My headlights flicked over trees, and that's when it happened. I swear, many figures appeared in the beam straight ahead, lined up at the forest's edge. They stood motionless, facing the road. Nothing about them was normal. Their clothes were dark, no faces visible in the dark. I slammed the brakes, locked up the wheels. Daddy, who are they? Kids whispered. I don't know, I said, heart pounding hard enough to rattle the windows. Stay in the car. I pressed the horn. Long blast. 3 seconds. Nothing. No, I muttered, backing up slowly, staring through the windshield. Gone. Nothing. The woods ahead were empty. A moment of stunned quiet. Then, Dad. Dad. My head snapped to the back seat. Mika's hand gripped the headrest. Evan had tears shining. Anna had the same wide eyes. We were all frozen. Go, I whispered. Shift to drive. Press the gas. We tore out of that clearing and kept going. Without pause. Without map. After 20 minutes, I swear it felt like hours, the road changed. Houses. Streetlights. Overhead signs. We hit civilization around 3 a.m. That was the scariest trip we've ever taken. We still say that every time someone talks about road trips or asks why I keep a tattered paper map on my dashboard. That night burned a truth into me: you can't truly rely on GPS. In the deep woods, where pavement turns to gravel and gravel fades into nothing, your phone doesn't just lose service. It loses judgment. It stops making sense. That night, GPS nearly sent us over the edge of a mountain. Since then, I don't trust it. Because GPS? It doesn't see what's really out there. It doesn't know what's waiting at the end of those dark, empty roads.